Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in Minden. Whatever. Yeah, it's something else. Some kind of fuck you beginning. Just get right to it. You're an idiot. Come on, you can figure it out yourself. Repeat after me. I won't say it though. You are an idiot. But anyway. Speaking of idiots, Molyneux guy. He did a video on antinatalism. I played 17 seconds of it, and you can already smell it. Why bother? Too stupid. So I'll get to that. So there's stuff going on, right? I made a couple of videos this week. One was the interview with the whatever guy, Humpty Dumpty, whatever, and the other was the Karina video about men and women, and that one sort of brings it out, right? Because you can see it in the comment sections. This sort of like the theme for this week for me, anyway. Is we're back to this whole thing of communicating with people and what makes them such rigid fanatics. People get really dumb ideas and they cling to them so tightly. They're just completely owned by him. And it sort of relates to this Stefan Molyneux thing, just because he starts off and he's already starting off to almost sounding like we need the white people to breed, like we're supposed to have a breeding war and win. Replace white with intelligent people. So he concedes that it's the intelligent people who can understand that having children is a big frickin' horrible mess to step into, in your personal life. And worse, the kid could have a really bad time too. None of it makes any sense. I mean, it's just you're just asking for trouble, asking to fail, because that's sort of the pattern. It's really hard to see. Like it's hard to find the intelligent. Like all these people keep talking about all these intelligent people, but it's really hard to find any of those, in my opinion. Because there's lots of intelligent people who think really stupid things, and I think there's a lot of that in the world. There's a lot of people who I wouldn't want to be just because they are so goddamn stupid. So even if they have enough intelligence to play the system or game the system, but they're still assholes, and I wouldn't want to be them. And they can't figure out the simplest of things. So, what good is this intelligence doing us? The real simple argument is that all of this philosophy stuff isn't like doing complex derived equations or something. It's like even physics. Physics is so full of shit. Hawking just died. There's all this shit about, the great Hawking and blah, blah, blah. And, nothing he believed in was ever proven to ever exist. I mean, it's they're just very good little fairy tale writers, and so much of this stuff, they're so far up their own asses. And these are like intelligent people, and they can't smell it. I mean, they got their head way up their ass and they have no clue. And so this whole argument that somehow people have to be intelligent, like intelligence will defeat idiocracy. And it's more, idiocracy is the outward symptom of the problem, appears to be stupidity or some kind of idiocy. But it's really the idiocy of garbage in. It's really not that all these people have brains that don't work. Like they're fundamentally retarded, and that's why they're dysfunctional. They're dysfunctional because they've never applied their brain from the very beginning to the rational process of doing logic and understanding that like facts are what you're supposed to use to point in directions. And instead they're using like wishful thinking and mommy says so. I mean, there's no, the facts are completely abhorrent There's no fact that even indicates the possibility of a God, let alone any kind of facts that support belief in one. It's, it's anti-factual, and people still, cling to it, and they don't cling to it because it's logical. They'll even talk about their faith, and it's, the word is actually defined as belief without reason, either applying logic or facts. I mean, it's the definition of just imbecile. And people are, hey, sure, I'm an imbecile. I have faith. you know, I mean, so anyway, so this argument is somehow you need to have some sort of increase in the genetic pool. Like we have to somehow elevate the water level in the genetic pool to have any hope for the future. No, I don't think that's where it's going to come from. I mean, I think the real hope is in some other mechanism. Is it some other mechanism that drags people into the swamp of being an idiot and part of the idiocracy and being simpletons and and a lot of it just, I guess, has to do with too that people don't want to do any of the work, of understanding how systems work before they apply their opinion. People have this perception that they're competent to analyze any circumstance without having to know any details about physics or mechanics or engineering or history or anything. And that's the real liability, is that idiots like Stefan Molyneux can talk about idiotic notions of anarchy or some other kind of silly concept that can't possibly have any hope of working. And they somehow deluded themselves into thinking it's somehow rational to advocate for a non-system as a system, like that's somehow going to work. Because they have some notion in their head. Somebody said something like the invisible hand once, and so they have this idea that somehow there's invisible feedback mechanisms that'll come to the rescue and make sure things don't blow up. And there's no. A smart person came up with that crap, and it's just that it's crap. And so it took a smart person to write that in a book somewhere. The invisible hand will come to the rescue. When no, there's no fairy godmothers. They just don't show up and turn mice into horses and shit. None of that crap happens. You have to work it. You have to, it takes work. It ain't gonna just happen because some invisible hand shows up to fix things. You have to do the work of engineering things for them to work right. And everybody can see that. They can see that cars don't just. You just don't pray at your car and it works better. You don't say friendly words to it. It's a mechanical thing, and it's going to be dependent on mechanical functions, and you can figure out what parts are going to wear out, what parts need to be cared for and adjusted for it to maintain its performance and all that kind of crap. And the same thing has to do with culture and society. And so anyway, I will play his video at some point in the future, and more than 17 seconds. Maybe I'll do a full response, play the whole thing just for the fun of it, but not today. Yeah. So, in other news, Snake Plisskenus, your Lord and Savior guy, has become a citizen, which is kind of funny. I'll put something else on the screen besides Molyneux. There's Snake there. So I'll put his image there. So it's just kind of he's becoming a citizen. I shouldn't say he's become a citizen. In the sense that he's sort of getting his act together, and he's starting to realize that life works better if you plan it, a little bit. It's much more efficient if you put the oil in before the engine seizes, not after, that kind of stuff. Little life lessons like that. And he's sort of enjoying this seems to be enjoying the idea of having this power, where he's figuring out he can control some things that he, I guess, might have thought were always out of control. And it's just kind of funny because, he's a little old to figure out this stuff. And it'll be funny to see how far it goes, like how much of a citizen he becomes, and whether he'll start to get annoyed with, people letting their dogs shit on the sidewalks and, other bullshit. Might even get annoyed at some pothead, smoking while he's driving, or something like that. It might occur to him that, hey, you shouldn't do that as a citizen, fuckhead. Who knows? I don't see that coming, but who knows? He still seems to have his some old habits that he still hasn't broken free of, his medicine and such, his vitamins, quote unquote. But anyway, it's just kind of funny that he's seemed to have found some mechanism that makes him feel like working is accomplishment, and it's worth it, and all that kind of stuff. And that's admirable. I don't know if it's admirable. Maybe it's not the right word. Lamentable. My condolences. No, I mean, obviously you got to do it if because all the other choices suck. So the only choices that really work are the ones where, yes, you have to pay for your life. Because doing the free lunchy thing, the lunch ends up being kind of stale and maybe even poisonous. So you really don't want to have to live on that. If you can find a way to balance the two. So he seems to be working out that, he's, eventually I suppose he's going to want to get back into being interested in other things, besides being, some sort of the gratification from job well done at work kind of things, those kind of feelings, and that might not be enough eventually. And he'll start wandering, and the question is trying to always balance that the two things, the part of you that wants more, and the part of you that can't compromise the part that's providing the foundation for your existence. So anyway, it's a weird thing to play with. I mean, I did it in my youth, just because once I went crazy, the game changes. Once you become dysfunctional, you have to play a different game to survive. But when I was working, I was there certainly were times when I seemed quite obsessed with work, and I just kept looking for more work to do. And I spent a couple of years anyway. Well, that's all I did. I mean, I didn't have any life outside of just maintaining circumstances so I could, between jobs and just just going to and from work. And it seemed to be enough, as a life. I mean, but it was also, it wears on you, especially depending on the kind of work it is. So I can understand that if I was, some kinds of work might be more, where you can manage it. You don't let it wear you down. It doesn't kill you physically or psychologically. Because he talked a little bit about that in Chaos in Restaurants, and that's for sure way too much chaos. It is a mental, compared it to mental illness, yes, it will. I think it made me crazy. It helped make me crazy. I was already on the edge, and gave me that little push. But anyway, but you can imagine that there's also kind of work where you could get very caught up in it. Like I find when I'm programming or something, computers, you can get caught up in it because there's some kind of something doesn't work right, and you'll just keep pursuing it and keep hacking at it because it's supposed to work. And you can become quite becomes a challenge and a game, a head game, and you can kind of feel that you're not caring for a good reason. I mean, it's sort of a negative reason that you're pursuing it, but you're just not going to get defeated by some stupid piece of code. you're gonna, you just gonna, I'm not losing to that, and the mission is this small mission, but it keeps your focus and it keeps you from thinking about all the other crap in reality that'll depress the fuck out of you if you start thinking about it. So yeah, I sort of want to blend this into some kind of conversation about the idea of how people can be so distracted, when the world is so obviously yuck, and they can just sit there and smile about it and talk about like the Anacondavites, they'll go to these places where these people live in these, just living in noise and dirt and, everything, yuck. And they'll talk about it like it's charming, and all the people are charmed by their charming life. And they're all acclimated to living in crap. And it's, that's not, I mean, you could say they're acclimated, but it's not a good kind of acclimation. It's a forced march. I mean, we sort of accept whatever happens. I mean, Hawking, the physicist, died, and he lived so long, with a disease that usually just kills people quickly, and but yeah, the life was just so. You have to just, you can't even imagine how difficult these days and days of this, this whole routine and the whole thing just to get him barely functional. And, it's hard to argue that that's, oh yeah, you just get used to it. Well, you get used to it because you have to, but not for any good reason. Because they're, the options are limited. So you endure. But it's nothing to celebrate. But that's the idea of the work thing, and the fact that people's lives are consumed by their obligations, and if they had a little bit of time to think about their place in the universe and where it all ends, which is never anywhere good. You're dead, the kids are broke, they're getting divorced, they got cancer. I mean, you can't insure or guarantee anything. Everything's, just so messy, and deserve has so little to do with it, and all that kind of crap. And once you start thinking about that a little bit, that's just, But if you're distracted enough by just trying to breathe, or eat your breakfast, or then you don't have time for thinking about how bad it is, and maybe about how bad an idea it would be to force somebody to relive this over and over again. Be stuck in that wheelchair forever. And in theory, that's what we do, because we just keep creating the same disease, the same circumstance exists, and we just perpetuate the mess. And it's one of those kind of like obvious things. Is like my parents used to talk about that kind of stuff with, as their parents got older, and the whole problem of the nursing homes and the this and the that, and they talk about like, oh yeah, we should do something about this, and then they roll right into the same, they just walk into the same hell house, whatever, and they never fixed it, so to speak. They never did anything to make sure this doesn't just keep happening. And I guess to some extent we're stuck in the same position, and then everybody, because nobody ever can get anything done. And so that's a whole nother subject about how all this stupidity, and the whole political system that just makes it impossible for any good judgment to be exercised, because the only two things in control are fanaticism on the right and fanaticism on the left. Nothing in between has a real voice. I mean, one side or the other has to win. and those two sides are always too far. They always take too much. They're too pendulum swingy in terms of their solutions or their non-solutions. And I guess that's the other irony. There's a whole bunch of problems that neither side solves. They don't do anything at all about, like deficit spending or even immigration, right? Because people have this impression now that even though the Republicans used to be pro-immigration because it drove wages down, now they're pretending, to be against immigration, but they're not really doing anything serious about it, And the obvious serious thing to do would just be to do the employer sanctions. You have to have a Social Security number to work, and fixes the problem. But they talk about they'll sit there and engage in months of talking about building walls, at huge expense, when the problem they can fix it for like $17.84. I mean, that's what it would cost for a computer programmer to write the program that, you type in a Social Security number and it tells you who the asshole is, and you can say, oh yeah, that's the guy who wants to work here. What's so tough about that? Oh yeah, it's not tough at all. So clearly the intent is not to fix the problem. So going back to the subject of intelligence. So I'm just saying most of what I just said, I think there's some reasonable points in there and all that but you don't need you don't have to be, it's just like even the idea of just deficit spending alone. I mean, it's just such a simple idea. It's clearly generational theft. It clearly doesn't make any sense. I mean, you could just write cartoons about what it is. I mean, you get a credit card, you spend the money, you enjoy the luxuries you bought, and then you stick the liability in your kid's pocket. I mean, any idiot can see how, well, no, that can't be right. That just can't be how you're supposed to live your life. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. That's a kind of in slavery and in servitude, and that's just shackling. That's like cutting your kid's toes off or something. It's just automatically limiting their potential in the future to do things because they got to pay the bill for your fun. You went to the fun house and they have to pay for it with interest in the future. That can't be right. What, you need a high IQ to figure that out? That just can't possibly be right. Just can't. And then you go in deeper. You can have deeper conversations about it, and somebody can say, well, but see, it's the investment capital now will bring so much wealth and industry and progress, that it'll more than pay for the liability in the future. But you can make a few arguments pointing out how that's all horseshit, because the way this happens, this whole deficit spending is you cut the taxes on the rich. They don't pay their bills, so to speak. The bills don't get paid. So the rich have more money because you cut their taxes. And then you go to the rich and say, can I borrow the money you didn't pay in taxes? And I'll pay you interest. So they win twice. They not only are not paying taxes and getting to keep extra money, but you're going to pay them interest on it forever. I mean, come on. So there's no rational arguments. Come on, it's just nonsense. It's silly. But look how dead that conversation is. It's just dead. It's not even a glimmer of that having any meaning to anyone. As being a significant problem. It just doesn't exist. And you can't just blame idiocracy because the smart people aren't talking about it. They're not making it the agenda. All right. So, and the other part of it is that we've broken, everybody has become so anti-government or anti, some sort of corporate structure that they've jump to all these solutions of this little private industry shysterism and bullshit to fix all the problems. And you can't get anywhere with that. So the Google solution to search engines, it's not a solution. A marketing company controlling what's on the internet, that's not going to work because they have incredible conflicts of interest. And I think you can prove that it's had an effect, and it's a real problem in terms of their definition of the internet isn't the internet. And you really don't know what's on the internet unless you have to do the private browsing thing. You have to hide your IP because Google will serve you results that are different than they serve other people because they're gaming you. You're not. It's not an equal or a fair representation of reality. Everybody's given a cheated, served up a Google meal, So you can't have what you want. You get what Google gives you. I didn't really want to get on that because I want to get on to the more significant subject, which was the news, and it's gotten so bad because it's all for some sort of capitalist gain thing. So it's all done based on market share and being able to tell people what they want to hear and get them to watch more so they'll see more commercials, and it really doesn't have anything to do with the truth anymore or what matters. And the news is just if it bleeds it leads, and it's just gotten, this has always been a problem, but it's even worse now. And it's so bad that you might as well just understand what you're doing. You're tuning in to find out what did the stupidest or the craziest person do today. That's what the news is. The news is just going to tell you what did the fringiest, smallest percentage of the population, what kind of nonsense did they engage in today? Who did they shoot, or who did they run over, or what stupid thing did the stupidest person in the country do today? And somehow people think that's news. When no, the news is that you're spending your kids' money, that you're essentially signing up your kids to be slaves to the owners of the future who are going to want to get their money back. And they're going to make your kids work for it to pay it back. That should be news. The news should be something about the circumstance that we're actually living in and what's happening with progress and the fact that machines are taking our jobs and all that. That stuff is the stuff that we should be talking about. What's going to happen when technology does this or this change, nanotechnology, what are the dangers? That stuff is news. How are we prepared for the new terrorism? Because it's a possibility out there, that it's one of the ways you get people to be evil is because they're doing it for a nation. It's a little hard to get people to be evil for some just stupid evil scientist who decides I just want to kill people or something. Usually has to be for some mission or some cause. So usually it's going to have to be because some scientist thinks he's being a good patriot, and he's protecting his country from, these evil, Americans or whatever. But I mean, it's really an incentive that's out there. They have the money. I mean, they're going to finance malicious uses of technology. And what thought have we given to what that's going to represent when something like that happens? What do? Do we close the borders entirely? Nothing gets into the country. It all has to be inspected out. We should really be figuring out that maybe we should start dealing with some of that now. And you can't deal with it, if you're in chaos, if your country is being run on chaotic thinking that we can grow forever and, you can just keep piling more people on top of each other in cities and you don't have to worry about the fact that you have no infrastructure. Lots of shit. It just doesn't make any sense. But that's not on the news. News is about what did the crazies do today? What did the worst right-wing loony do? What's the worst Nazi statement of the day? And what's the worst loop-de-doo, tree huggery, whatever, feminist transvestite, zestite. That's a good one, zestite, a transvestite. What crazy theory, you know, did they write on a poster? Um, so just find the fringest characters in the country and define us or our character by those characters and say that everybody on the right is as loony as that loony and everybody on the left is as loony as that loony, and don't bother trying to have a rational conversation about what people with some sort of sensible brain should be saying. But anyway, like I said, that sort of comes out in the comments when you have these discussions about men and women, because these mid towers, these ones who have sort of given up, you know, which I don't blame them. Women are difficult. It's difficult to live with people, and it's difficult to interact, with a gender that does have a lot of differances, and respecting that and being fair isn't much fun. So I mean, I can understand where you're saying you don't want to do it, but don't pretend there was some other option. Like, okay, no, let's go back to when men was men and women was bitches. That's just bullshit. You don't like the game, don't play. I mean, no one obliges people. This whole idea of getting married and having kids, these are all obligations you chose to step into with some understanding of what it means. You sat there and said these silly words. Oh, yeah, I'll love you forever and I won't cheat on you and I'll do all this shit. Yeah. Sure. You said this shit, asshole. I mean, there's no gun to your head. They just seem like such. But anyway, they're so excessive in this. It's this whatever this sexism. It's like a racism of whatever you want to call it. This idea that all women are and all this are and all that. It's just stupid. I mean, I think we should acknowledge that. All organisms with functioning penises. Are going to have some sort of common shared problem, and that maybe all organisms with sensitive vaginas are going to share some sort of common liabilities and difficulties, and but this idea that anything is it's just so stupid. And what else? I mean, so they're just such really dumb arguments, and you're just saying, what the hell is that? Something. Always something going on, and there really shouldn't be. This stuff shouldn't be doing anything on its own, but it happens. I don't think there's any critters in the house, as far as I know. Since the last one was murdered under the house, I haven't heard too much. Anyway, yeah, so I've sort of made these arguments before that even subjects like antinatalism, it's not that complicated. It's kind of a simple argument, like, oh yeah, well, I've experienced life, I understand how most of what I have that are good things, I didn't really it's just lucky. I'm lucky I didn't have this happen. Or I didn't have that happen. I didn't, all the things that could have happened. And, yeah, but I don't see any reason to sit there and pretend that, well, because I got lucky, I should go stick, the playing cards in somebody else's pocket, pretending that they're going to be lucky too. I have to recognize that, well, no, what's the average? And the average doesn't look too good. And then you have to recognize that the well below average is a realistic possibility. And you got to understand that is so much worse than, 5 mediocres are not going to pay for one catastrophe. There's no, there's not enough positive value in this thing. The positive value is usually in escaping the negatives. Evading the bad is the best thing that can happen to you. I mean, that's not a complex theme, right? Evading the bad is the best thing that can happen to you. It's like if you have your health, you have everything. It's sort of true, right? But it's not really a positive thing. It's evading a negative thing. So it's really not good enough. It's really not enough to say, oh yeah, this was worth, what you're going to spend in terms of all the people who aren't going to evade it, are going to get the bad ticket. The bad is so bad, and the good is so, yeah, can't really grab hold of it. It's just made out of you feeling unaccomplished and then you seeing the opportunity to, maneuver around and win the race in some kind of way so you can be a winner for 5 minutes. But that's really all. And then you can even just look at most of your life, what you're doing. You spend most of your life daydreaming and wishful thinking and doing a lot of things that have to do with, well, next year I'm going to be so much better off, or next year this is going to happen, and none of that shit ever happens, And so you spend most of your life thinking you're getting somewhere where you're not really getting anywhere. Yeah, so I'm just saying it's not a complex argument, and none of it's complex. So whether you have to explain it to idiocracy or you have to explain it to smart people, like saying there's no real relationship. I don't see any of, oh yes, this is a smart person is more conducive to reason. I just see educated people as being so full of shit, a different kind of shit. The pop culture. I mean, Hawkins. He was supposed to be intelligent, and he had these wacky notions that aliens were going to come all the way across space to build a McDonald's, and eat us or something, or use us for like window cleaner or something. Oh, we'll be so much dumber than them that somehow the aliens, won't hear us meow, and they won't hear us go, ow, ow, that hurt, and they won't understand what that means. I mean, it's retarded. That, oh yeah, they can build spaceships, go all the way across space, and they don't know what it is to harm something. I mean, it's just an idiotic premise. But he was supposed to be smart. I mean, it's so stupid that I can't be smart. And then you go through all the other, well, I won't get into all the other physics crap, they believe in multiverses and all this other shit. And they're just making this crap up like religion was made up. It's just more made up fairy tales about, oh, isn't that fun? Yeah, oh yeah, you really live in 4 zillion universes, and each one tiny little thing is different, and isn't that fun? It's retarded. So, I guess it's probably enough. So yeah, I plan on doing some videos this week, hopefully, more than the usual, and so see how that goes. And yeah, so it's still just the objective is that this really has to do with who's selling stuff, right? This is all something to do with just, everything has been turned into like the direct logical route of, well, here you explain the facts and you do this, and it just doesn't have anything to do with it. It just has to do with what you, it's like a Happy Meal. You have to like sell it by putting extra stuff in it, like toys and things. And it's like philosophy is being turned into that. It's all about the messenger. It's not the message. Yeah, so that's the real problem to overcome is the negative impact of the institution. So the politics is completely broken. All special interest, right? So the rich people and the religious nuts, And they have nothing in common, which is so funny. You know, my father was a Republican voter all the time, but he hated. I mean, he didn't have any use for religion or people with, you know, imposing religion. None of that moral majority crap appealed to him at all, because he kind of understood. He wanted poor people to have abortions. He didn't want poor people to have more babies, so he didn't want to have to pay for them. And it's so illogical. So these people with all this conservative economic values are in bed with people who are trying to force 1 million or 2 million extra poor people to be born every year. People that the mothers don't even want to have the baby. They don't even want it. They're poor people smart enough to say, I don't even want to have the kid. You know, and here they are, you know, Facebook friends, you know, with this idiotic philosophy, because somehow they have some common interest, which is they both love rich people and they don't like poor people, or some kind of bullshit like that. Jesus loved capitalism, or I don't even understand it, frankly. But yes, the rich people figured out how be a Bible thumper, you know, support the Bible thumpers because they'll vote for you, and they're suckers. You really don't have to give them much. But the point is they give them enough, in the sense that yes, they do probably force 1 million extra babies to be born, and you end up giving people money to have kids, and you get child deductions and different other kinds of bullshit that, you know, a rational conservative has got to know, well, that's a really dumb idea. Don't incentivize other people having kids, because that's not going to put money in my pocket, especially if it's poor people, because I have to pay to educate them, and their kids might be disabled. I got to pay for that, you know, and I'm going to have to subsidize their wages in the end, because they're not going to make enough money to live. You know, none of this it's not going to work to my advantage. So anyway, so it'd be different, I suppose, if we actually still made anything in this country. But the fact is it doesn't do you any good to, you know, having people cut your grass for less money or something. You're just not making enough on the deal, you know, where if they were actually making products, then it might matter. But if they're all going to be made overseas for cheap labor over there, what do you need the cheap labor here for? Because they're not going to be any good socially. But anyway, so I'm just talking about, so that's the corruption of the idiotic Republicans, and the left wingers have the same perversions. They, you know, they're somehow for worker rights, but yet there's these special unions that get to have all these special rights. You know, there's no sense of anybody thinking that those rights should be universal for all workers, not just government workers. And then they, you know, I mean, you can, you know, they're way too generous. Like poor people, it's not their fault. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. You can't subsidize bad behavior. There has to be some kind of reward and punishment that's rational. And if you keep coming to the rescue, then people don't learn any lessons and they don't change their behavior. And you have to give them some indication of that. So like I said, you don't have to necessarily punish them for being assholes, but you have to at least reward them when they do the right thing. So when the welfare whore gets sterilized, give her more money, you know, that kind of thing. You got to do something to create sensible incentives. And it seems like the left-wingers just have no idea what a sensible incentive is. And they think they can solve a problem, you know, in a sense, by just throwing money at it instead of fixing it. You know, and you can't do that. They're big on band-aids, and they're not too smart on the idea of fixing or curing a problem. I mean, so it's a little too simplistic. There's so much more to that conversation about, but anyway, that politics is just broken. So you can't use politics to fix anything in its current state, you know, until we have a third party, till we do some kind of open source, direct democracy kind of thing. We're fucked. You know, in terms of making rational conversation part of the political conversation, because with the two stupid choices, it just sucks. I mean, I clearly lean one side more than the other side, because Republican is always a bad idea. Just never, never, never. Anything they do is always wrong. They never do anything positive. It's always going to be negative. Where the Democrats, at least, aren't always negative. But anyway, what else was I going to say? I mean, it's, but the whole point is that there's got to be a different way for people to communicate. The news is useless. It doesn't want to talk about any of the real issues, the real subjects. So everything's just sort of broken in terms of how ideas are communicated and how they're rewarded and punished. Also, what having a real feel for what idea is winning, because you get these false notions that everybody thinks a certain thing, but when they do an actual decent poll, you find out that no, 70% people think that's a stupid idea, that kind of thing. We don't really have enough of that. All right. Well, anyway, I'm not totally satisfied with this video, but it'll have to do. Yeah. It's just, I guess I'm just tired or something. I don't know what there's something bugging me, and I just don't know exactly what it is. But it's, just, I don't have the usually there's like a chain of thoughts that my videos sort of just follow. This one just didn't have any of that. I mean, I had sort of an idea where I was going, but I just didn't get there. And anyway, whatever. I mean, it's just more things to pick at and analyze, right? Well, what's different about today, and I do a lot of that. So anyway, doesn't really matter. It is what it was, and we'll see what happens the next time. Yeah, so until the next time. I feel as though I have, yeah, I always keep going, right? It's like I feel like I have the pieces, it's like I have all the parts, and I really should be able to put these pieces together and the thing works, in terms of this idea of communicating and persuading and organizing the arguments and all. I just feel like it's there to be done, and as I'm sitting there looking at it, I'm saying, why can't I just get these? I should just be able to so it's just kind of frustrated. Maybe that's just part of the frustration, because I feel like it's doable, and I should do it. We'll see. That's enough. Yeah. It was kind of funny. Snake Plissken's videos were kind of awkward, but he hasn't made one in a while, so he has a good excuse. But maybe it's just I caught his awkwardness, and it just fucked up my thinking, because I haven't listened to any of his videos in a while. I don't listen to videos too much. I mean, there's not too many people saying anything. Yeah, so maybe that was it. Maybe I just, I just caught brain farting from Snake Plisskenus. What the hell was his name? It's got a real name of some kind. Short name or something. Al or something. What the hell was it? Ray. That's it, Ray. Ray Williams or something. Ray Wallace. Yeah, Ray Wallace. Ray something Wallace. I guess he has to have 3 names if you're going to have a Ray Wallace names or something like that. Anyway. Okay, yeah, I'll give up. Next time, or the time after that, somewhere in there, and much better. Pretty sure.